So, what'd you guys get for 24? 500 and what? 95? Okay. First of all, I'm not 100% sure if it's right because I don't have the key sitting right before me, but does it seem reasonable? Okay, it should be less than 700, right? It should be more than 350 because 350 would be half, right? So this seems reasonable, right? It seems like a reasonable answer. I want you to ask yourself that at the end of every one of these problems. Is this reasonable? How did you guys do the problem? Somebody tell me what you did. What'd you do, Evan?
700 times 0.15.
Okay. So if I do 700 times 0.15, that gives me 105. What is that? Because that's not my answer.
That's how much you get off.
That's how much I get off, right? And so then I subtract it. Did anybody do it a different way? A way that only involved one step? That is really just kind of like moving your decimals but still doing sort of the same thing because you're still subtracting. Anybody do it where you only had to multiply two things together?
I didn't do it this way, but I know how to do it.
How?
You take 85 because, it's hard to explain. But then you multiply 85. Multiply 0.85 by 700.
That's correct. This is what I want you to be doing. Okay? Now, I guess you are still doing some subtracting, but it's easy numbers you can do in your head. Right? Okay? Where would we get 85 from? Okay? If I add it to 0.15, or if I add it to 15, that's 100, right? So, if something is 15% off, it means you've got to pay 85% of the price, right? Those two things should add up to 100. Sometimes I'll say if something's 15% off, that means it's 85% on. The advantage to this is usually 100 minus whatever the discount is you can do in your head. So we're doing 100% minus the 15% gives us the 85%, and then we could just type in 0.85 times 700. This is the way I want us to try to think because it is going to help us whenever we get to the next step. Okay? So if we're trying to do that same thing for number 25, now you can still get the answer the other way. That's perfectly okay. But if we're trying to do the same thing for number 25, how could I do this in one single step where I just have to multiply one time? 0.70 times 900, because if it's 30% off, that means you got to pay 70% of the price. So 0.7 times 900 is going to equal 630. Is that reasonable? That seems okay there, because it should be more than half, but definitely less than 900. So I think that looks okay. I'm checking. Yeah. My husband is there, so I'm checking in with him because Hunter's is at the beta convention. We had to go last night because the performing arts went on Sunday, so he played his little fiddle last night. But he is in the finals for instruments, so he had to play today in front of everybody in like the big session. So he was really super nervous about that. But hopefully he'll do okay. On my phone. Maybe I'll show you guys later. He did pretty good. I'll see if I can show you guys because he was precious. All right. Questions on this? All right. Okay. Now let's talk about some sales tax. Okay. So sales tax, they're going to charge you depending on what state you live in, there are some states without sales tax. But sales tax varies by location. So each state has a different sales tax, and there are some states without sales tax. Within a state, like within North Carolina, different cities or counties can impose an extra sales tax on top of the state sales tax. So if you look at your receipts, I'm not really sure right now. I don't track it really closely a lot of times, but like a lot of times Surry County may have a different tax than Forsyth County. So if you go to Winston shopping, you may see that their sales tax is different than our sales tax here. Or sometimes they may be the same. Now, the local sales tax that they can put on stuff, there's sort of like a cap there. They couldn't decide, like, we want to make it, I think there's a cap anyway. They couldn't make sales tax like 10% or anything. But you will see sales tax fluctuate. It is, anybody got a receipt in their pocket right now? I think it's set. I think it's 7 right now, but sometimes it goes up. So I think it, sales tax. Yeah, that sounds right. I think it's 7 in Surry County, but you can check at the bottom of your receipt. It'll tell you whenever you buy something. So it can vary depending on where you're at. It also, anybody else know something else about sales tax? Sales tax is not always 7. 6.5, like you may see 6.5 in places, but like within like Surry County or probably within, like it's going to be the same within that whole county except for certain types of items. What food has a 2% sales tax? So the sales tax on food is lower. I believe it has to be like grocery store tax, not like McDonald's tax. I think McDonald's still has 7% tax, like restaurants. If for food that you buy. That's tax. It depends. Taxes depend on a lot of things. Because if you have 7 children and you are a single mom with 7 children and you work at McDonald's, you are not going to, well, they might take something out of your taxes, but probably you can just get it where they're not taking much out at all because you have so many dependents. However, if you were like a teenager working at McDonald's, you more than likely do not have many dependents, and you will, and you're also working part-time, so you don't make as much money, so you probably won't have as much taken out. So it depends on, because income taxes are based on like different tax brackets, so like if you make more, they'll take a bigger percentage out rather than less. Although someone who is working a part-time job at McDonald's will probably definitely be in the lowest tax bracket because, you're not going to be making a ton, and you're part-time, so you're not making as much. Somebody full-time could possibly be a little higher. Then, you can compare it to people who make, like, way more money. But sales tax is a lot less complicated than income tax. Income tax can get really complicated. You got to make, like, piecewise functions and all kinds of stuff. Sales tax is just, if you buy something that costs this amount of money, they're going to add that percent of whatever your cost is to it. So it's pretty straightforward how to figure it. So let's look at two ways we could figure sales tax. So probably the way most of us would think about sales tax is, like, in this case, you're buying lumber to build a deck. I should probably like triple that right now because it's like crazy through the roof. But lumber to build a deck, it costs $1,200. Sales tax is 7%. How much does Devin have to pay for the supplies? So he's got to pay $1,200 for the supplies. I'm going to multiply that by 0.07. And if I do that, $84. Okay? All right. So 84. What is that?
How much that went into it?
That's your tax, right? So then I would have to take 1,200 plus 84, which would give me 1,284, which would be my total. Okay? All right, there is a quicker way. A way, just like we did with our discounts, there's a way that we can do this without having to do multiple steps. Okay? So when you're paying sales tax, it's not taken away from the price that you have to pay, but it's added to the price you have to pay, right? So what's going to happen is you have to pay 100% of the cost. Sales tax is not a discount. You have to pay the full $1,200 that the materials cost, right? But then you're having to pay an extra 7% on top of that. All right, so you're paying 100% of what it costs plus 7% for sales tax, which means that you're going to pay 107% of the cost. All right? So, if I change that to a decimal, what is 107? It's 1.07. So that's our decimal. If I multiply that by 1,200, I get 1,284. Right, same as we had before. Now, either one works perfectly fine for finding these answers, but I want us to work towards using this sort of shortcut method where we're looking at the total percent of the value that we're looking at. So, $84 is a pretty significant amount of money that you need to account for. Like if you've saved up money to build this deck, you need almost an extra $100, right, just to pay the sales tax on it. Yeah. So you want to make sure you think about that before you. And sometimes we're accustomed. I know that Hunter's really bad for this to think sales tax is always a really small amount because anytime he wants me to order him something on Amazon, I'll tell him he's got to bring me the money. He'll give me an extra $1 for tax, which usually covers it because he's usually not buying something very expensive. But if I'm buying something expensive, it's proportional, right? You got to have a lot more, so you got to account for it. All right, so Ella has $1. A pack of chewing gum costs 95 cents. This is also an outdated problem. All my problems are becoming outdated. I mean, I guess this is like a 5-piece pack of chewing gum, maybe. You can get it for 95 cents. But a normal 14-piece pack of chewing gum is $2 at least now. It's crazy. It's out of control. All right, so sales tax is 6.5%. Does Ella have enough money to buy the gum? Okay, so let's think about doing this not as two separate steps, but all together. So if sales tax is 6.5%, now I'm going to write this part down, but I would normally do this in my head. That means she's got to pay 100% plus 6.5%, which is 106.5%. And if we move that decimal 2 places, we get 1.065. Right? That part I usually do in my head, but if you need to write it down, please do. So you're paying 106.5% of the cost. The cost is 95 cents. We're going to multiply it by 1.065, and it is going to give us the total. Which is going to be 1.01175. We'll round it to 1.0. I think the store is going to round that up to 02. Yeah. I don't think they round according to rounding rules. I think they got an always round up rule. If it goes over 1 cent, they round it up to the next cent. Yeah. So she's got $1 or $2. If there are 2 pennies in the change bowl next to the counter, can she buy the gun? Yes. But if it's empty, she's out of luck. Yeah.
Okay,
You gotta think that cashier is not getting paid a lot of money, and that's gonna come out of there. If they and sometimes they get in big trouble if their drawer's off. So if they don't have the 2 cents to put back in there, so if their drawer is not right, if they're like because it's keeping a total of how much money is supposed to be in there when they ring it all up. So like it might only be 2 cents, but if they don't actually have the 2 cents on them to put in there, then their drawer rings up off, even if it's only by a couple cents, depending on the company or what it is. You can be in really big trouble. I know that my husband's cousin was a bank teller, and they fired people for being off just by dollars or cents, because if you can make a mistake of a couple cents, you also may make a bigger mistake for that. So she probably would have found somebody that would give her the couple cents or find them on the floor. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah. That's very nice. But we should never expect anyone to do that for us. There. Really? Right. And a lot of times they don't. Dollar General, they are seriously understaffed. One day I went there, and it was like 3 o'clock on like a Tuesday or something. I think it was summer. It wasn't school day. And they were already closed and had a sign on the door that said that they would be back open tomorrow. So. Yeah. All right. 28. Lakin buys a TV while Black Friday shopping. The TV costs $450, but it is $20 off for Black Friday. Sales tax is 6.75%. How much does Lakin pay for the TV? All right, first off, let's make a guess at this. Okay, just a guess. Is it going to cost more or less than $450? Less. Because our discount is bigger than our sales tax, right? If we only had like a 5% discount, it would still end up costing more than $450, right? Because our sales tax would be bigger than our discount. But it should be less than $450. What do you guys want to guess? What do you think it should be?
Just 400, I think.
About 400? Okay. 350 to 400? Okay. If you've already worked it out, don't worry. So, just as a guess, it's a good idea to do that ahead of time. All right, so let's do this in as few steps as possible. So if I start with my 450, what could I multiply it by? What? 0.20 is not going to get us as few steps as possible. Because if it's 20 off, what percent do you have to pay? 80, right? So if you do 450 times 20, that's going to give you a discount, but then you're going to have to subtract. So sales tax is going to be figured last, although we're going to talk about whether that matters or not here in a second. Because you'll have all of your items will be totaled up, and then it'll say tax, and then it'll have the total. It'll say subtotal. It'll have however much everything added up together cost, tax, and they'll have your total at the bottom of your receipt. So 450 times 0.8 is 360. It's looking pretty good on your estimate there, Evan. All right. Then, in as few steps as possible, I want to consider sales tax. So 360 times what? Not 6.75. What is it? Is sales tax taken away from or added to? Added to. So it's 100% plus the 6.75. So we'll do 1.0675. Okay, so sales tax should always, when you're doing your sales tax, it should always be a number bigger than 1, because you do 100% you got of the price you owe plus the sales tax. So if we multiply that, all right, 384.3. Depending on how much room you got in your budget, it might be important to actually solve it out, right? If you're pretty close. Sorry to be on my phone today. I gotta. Oh, he placed for his on-site drawing. I can't believe that. He drew a picture of an elk. We practiced drawing the picture of an elk because we thought he got to show up and like draw whatever he wanted. That's what I thought the instructions said. But apparently, if you're doing on-site art, you show up and they give you a prompt, like you've got to draw about this subject. So he texted me and was panicking because he was going to have to draw whatever the prompt was, and he had only practiced this one drawing. Yeah. So, well, it worked out well because his picture was a picture of like an elk with like some mountains and stuff in the background, and the subject that you were supposed to do was your hometown. So he still drew the elk since he's from Elkin, and even though we don't actually have elk here, but we have. So anyway, it worked out, but he was panicking because he thought he was going to get something there. That is an excellent question. I do know elks used to be much more prevalent in North Carolina. They have they have reintroduced a lot in Cherokee. You'll see some there, and I think the population is growing. So I don't know if there's a possibility there like used to be elk down around here long ago.
There did used to be, but a lot of people were hunting them, so they put them like Stone Mountain and other places to try to reach them.
Yeah, I don't even know if they really have them in Stone Mountain or not now. But definitely Cherokee's got a lot. Well, I don't know about a lot, but there are some there. But it's not. Yeah, they freeze up. All right. Okay. So here's my question. Did it matter which order we did that in? Like on your receipt, they're going to do like a subtotal. They'll do discounts first, then they'll do sales tax. Does it really matter though? Okay? Because what operation are you using here? Like specifically what, like, are you adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing? Or you're multiplying both times, right? Does it matter what order you multiply numbers in? It does not. So, it actually does not matter which one you do first. And in fact, you could even do this. You can do 450 times 0.8 for the discount and 1.065, 75, sorry, for your sales tax, and hit enter, and you can do it all in one step. Right, so it'll multiply and then multiply again. So the order really does not matter. Although, like on your receipt, you're going to do discounts before you do sales tax. If your discounts are different, so if you have like 2 items, and this shirt is 20% off, and these pants are 40% off, you got to figure your discounts first before you do sales tax because they're different there and you're not the same price. But for the most part, it really doesn't matter. So Kaylee is going to buy a pair of tennis shoes. They are supposed to cost $120, but they are marked 60% off. So you can't afford not to buy these babies right here. Sales tax is 7%. How much does Kaylee pay for the shoes? Okay? So let's try to do this all together as quick as we can. So we know we start with 120. That's the cost of the shoes. What do we multiply it by for the discount? 0.4 or 0.40. And then sales tax. Sure, what do you think? Okay. Did she cheat? All right. All right. Sales tax, what do I multiply by? 1.07. Okay? So, because 7% is 0.07, and then you got to add the 1 to it that covers the 100% that you're doing here. So, if we do 120 times 0.8 times 1.07, I did some, why did I do 0.8? I did 0.8. It's supposed to be 0.4. Let's try 51.36. That's pretty good for a pair of tennis shoes that were supposed to cost $120. That's pretty good. Yeah, sounds like they are. And those things are high. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And my dad found a pair of ropes for like $10.
Really?
Just because the box was there.
I love finding good deals. Yeah.
There's also a buy one get one free like still.
Yeah. I love finding good deals. I like to go to the junk store and dig through there to find junk. Yeah, HMI wholesale. It's behind Schul's Furniture near Tractor Supply. It's just junk. Have y'all been to the junk store? I love going to the junk store and digging around for stuff. I got this water bottle at the junk store. It was like $17.
Have you ever went to that
They're like $45. I wouldn't have one.
right beside the armory? Like you go back to the like technically part of the armory, there's like a warehouse shop.
I think we must be talking about the same place. It's next to the armory, but it's behind Schul's. Yeah, yeah. They got all kinds of junk back there. Some of them. I think this one had a sticker on it that said it was 45, but yeah. Lots of them are dented. Here's your key if you want a water bottle. They're all there because they're dented or their lids are broken. So go there, find you one that's not dented, and then just switch its lid with one that doesn't have a broken lid. That's what I did, yeah.
I remember my favorite place to find good deals was finding the oil back.
Yeah. They have a...
There was this wild kid deal where they would give you like the other pots, the candies. They'd give you like $5 to $4.
If we were in 7th grade, we could, because this would actually be our curriculum, but this is not our curriculum in 7th grade. Miss Swisher used to take the 7th grade kids to the mall, so, yeah, like Haynes Mall, yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, you missed that.
Don't rub it, and we missed too much stuff. We missed Camp Harris, we missed the whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Wherever you were at in that year, you definitely missed a lot.
Honestly, all my field trips happened in 6th grade. That's real cool.
Yeah. All right, next problem.
The most exciting thing I did to elementary school was going to the slot factory.
I love going to factories. I think they're so cool.
Yeah, we got free socks.
Yeah.
And I have not seen them in like 5 years.
I think factories are cool. It's very interesting. All right. Okay. Refocus unless you want to have a lot of homework. All right. So, a realtor sells a house for $210,000. If she gets a 3% commission on the sale, how much money does she make? This is how realtors make their money. Anybody's parent a realtor? Your dad is, isn't he? Your aunt is? Yeah. So, realtors get paid a percent of the amount that they sell the, house for. For this, if we want to know how much money she makes, what do we need to do? She makes 3% of whatever she sells the house for. Yep. Just 0.03, not 0.3. 0.3 would be 30%. And if you can make 30% commission on selling houses, then you've really figured out a good deal. But I think it's usually 2 to 5-ish range. So 210,000 times 0.03. So $6,300. That's a lot of money to make it once, right? Here's the thing. If you're a realtor, do you think you probably sell a house every day? Probably not. People don't just like show up at the house store and be like, I'm going to get that one. Thanks, right? There's a lot of looking around. There's a lot of taking people to houses. There's a lot of those people thinking about it. There's some negotiating on, trying to get the price up or down. So there's a lot of work that goes into that $6,300 that they get. Well, depending on what side they are on. Because you also a lot of times have a realtor that represents you if you're selling the house. This, if you sold a house every day, you'd make a fortune in realty. And you can make really good money in realty, I'm sure. But you also have to be careful. I know my brother-in-law works for a building company that builds like a lot of big like subdivisions, and they build. I think they were in Kernersville recently. Like it's usually bigger cities where they're building these like giant subdivisions. So they only have like so many house plans that they sell. There's not a lot. So there's like he works on the building side of things, but in the sales part, the salesmen, they get paid commission on this. And he said that the salesmen, some of them are fine, but some of them are very poor managers of their money. Because when you're like in this sort of field, some months you might sell 3 houses at once, right? So like you might have been working for a while and you might sell 3 houses at one time. And so you get like thousands of dollars at one time. But then you might go another month or 2 and not sell any houses. And then you might sell 5 in a month. So your income is not really consistent. It's up and down and up and down, which you have to be very careful with. Because he said that some of the guys that were in sales at his company, it would be like 1 month they would come in and have like just bought a new car and were living like, high in the world. And then like a couple months later, they'd be talking about how they were putting their groceries on their credit card because they couldn't afford them. And yeah. Yeah. So this, you can make a lot of money in stuff like this, but you also have to be smart with your money because it can vary a lot. Okay. Car salesmen are also paid on commission most of the time. A car salesman made $4,000 last month. He makes a 5% commission. What is the total value of the cars that he sold last month? Okay, what do you got? Tell me the answer first. I want to see if it's reasonable. Okay? All right, is that reasonable? Okay? Should this be more or less than what the 4,000 there? It should be significantly more, right? Because he only gets 5% of it. Well,
Oh, that's what I saw.
I don't know if we know how much each car cost.
No, well, it averages out that he gets about 200 per car.
How do you know how many cars he sold?
4,000 times. But not with the,
Okay, so $4,000 is just how much he made in the month.
yeah.
All right, so we don't know how many cars, so we wouldn't be able to tell per car. But so how did you figure it out?
Well, hold on, let me go up.
And I haven't checked to see if it's right, but it seems reasonable.
I did the 4,000 times 0.05, and then I ended up getting 200, and then I multiplied that by 20, and I ended up getting 4,000. So I went from there and multiplied 4,000 by 20, got 80,000, and then did the 80,000 point 0.0.
Okay, so you kind of did like, you knew it had to be 0.5 or 0.05, I guess, times something that should give you 4,000. So you were kind of playing around with the numbers.
To check our answer, I did
Yeah.
80,000.
And so when you got that number that seemed reasonable, you multiplied it by the 0.05 to check, right? Okay, let's talk about how we could go like straight to that. So that checking part, you knew it had to be 0.05 times whatever this was that was the answer equals 4,000. What do we use in algebra to represent that whatever it was that is the answer? We put an X right here, right? So we got 0.05X equals 4,000. How do we solve that? How do we get that X by itself? We divide by 0.05 because you're doing 0.05 times your X. So to get rid of it, you're going to divide by 0.05. And so 4,000 divided by 0.05 is 80,000. Yeah. And the really good thing is that you knew like how to check it to make sure that that was correct.
That's the type of way my brain works.
Okay? All right. Oh, is that it? Okay, we're good.
No, there's like over about acres at 80,000 more.
All right.